Okay, so now moving on to the next question, question number 27. During the COVID-19 crisis, India's total government expenditure rose from 13.4% of GDP to 17.7% of GDP. This is actually correct. Okay, although this is a very factual statement, okay, this is a factual statement, this is actually correct. Total government expenditure has actually rose. Okay, in fact, after that, it has come down to about 15% in financial year 2024, 2025. This increase in expenditure during recessionary conditions is an example of counter-cyclical fiscal policy. Right. So counter-cyclical fiscal policy, if you know about the economic cycle, you know that there will be a boom as well as in recession. Actually, it's going like this. Okay, the economy is growing, so it kind of happens in a three-dimensional format. Anyway, so this will be the boom, and this will be the recession, right? Right. In recession, what kind of fiscal policy is usually if it's a counter-cyclical fiscal policy? Okay, counter-cyclical fiscal policy. That is, the fiscal policy is going to be opposing the cycle. That is counter-cyclical fiscal policy. Right? So, a recession happens, the fiscal policy will try to expansionary. Right? It will be an expansionary fiscal policy. That is, the government will loosen its purse strings, we call it, right? It will go out on a spending spree, right? To stimulate the economy, ensure there is demand in the economy, to ensure that the economy, the recession is immediately overturned, right? Then during boom, it will be a contractionary, right? Right, because the government economy is already growing, so you don't need to more stimulate the economy. It will lead to hyperinflation, right? It will lead to demand pull inflation will happen, right? So you don't need to do that, right? So government will reduce its spending, okay, reduce the deficit, okay. The government will try to reduce its size, right? So this is usually what happens, right? There is also cyclical fiscal policy, okay. So if recession happens, what happens? A contractionary government will say, okay, we are not going to do anything, right? That is actually a cyclical fiscal policy, right? Like for example, during the Erdogan, the Turkey president, he actually followed for some time cyclical fiscal policy, right? Like for example, boom was happening, inflation was actually rising, so the government should have actually reduced itself, but he actually influenced the country with further liquidity. Okay, he infused the economy with further liquidity, and it again sent it to inflation. So there are two types of fiscal policy, but India follows a counter-cyclical fiscal policy, right? Coming back to the question. This is actually correct. This increase in expenditure during recessionary condition is actually an example of actually correct. The expenditure took the form of food grains, right? PMGKY, MGNREGA Yojana was there, right? Then you had MGNREGA was there. Okay, so all these, fertilizer, subsidies, everything was actually given, right? As the economy recovered post-COVID, the government continued to expand expenditure further to sustain growth. This is actually wrong, because the government actually reduced this expenditure. Okay, government actually reduced this expenditure. Okay, it actually reduced the food grains. Okay, although it made it free, it actually changed the coverage. Okay, so that is also done. So 1 and 2 is actually correct. 1 and 2.